Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, I'm Mateo311 and this is your channel for everything VR related. Today we have the VR Gamers tier list that's not only going over games, but also all of the available headsets. We'll start out by naming some F tier examples, and then work our way all the way up to the S tier. While I don't generally enjoy ripping on VR games or headsets, there is a lot that we can learn from this. When it comes to games, I won't be singling out any platform, and I'll include items from every major player in the VR industry. Now there are of course links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but before we jump in, this video is brought to you by Bocce Time. Maybe you've tried some table tennis or miniature golf in VR, but have you ever played Bocce Ball? Bocce Time offers up 12 distinct courses, quick match 1v1 games with random online opponents, the ability to create your own private room with up to 8 players, offline AI matches with 3 different difficulty levels, plus unlockable customization and full crossplay. So go ahead and grab your balls, it's Bocce Time. If you want to check out this game, it's currently available from both Steam and the Oculus Store, and there are of course links down in the description. Now obviously there will be some strong opinions throughout this video, and rating games like this is highly subjective, so make sure to go and comment whenever you agree or disagree with me. When it comes to rating headsets, they will be scored based on their release date, rather than how they stack up right now. So let's go ahead and get things started with the F tier, and out of the 15 different headsets I have personally owned, the Vive Cosmos has by far been the worst. It featured exceptionally poor head and controller tracking, a myriad of software issues, incompatibility with their own Vive port storefront, an extremely small sweet spot, a hinge mechanism that prevented the headset from sitting properly, a cable that seemed like it was scientifically designed to tangle, and finally the controller battery life was ridiculously short. This headset was basically dead on arrival, and making matters worse, it wasn't cheap by any means. Now I'm sure there's some knockoff VR brands out there that are even worse than the Vive Cosmos, but I doubt the majority of people have even heard of them. Now on a similar note, there is a horrendous bargain bin of Steam VR games that should have never seen the light of day. But without actively looking for the worst VR game, I'd have to say my least favorite game ever was called Origin 13. I originally played this title in PAX East in 2020, and I walked away thinking, wow, that is just not a good game. Months later, the developers messaged me to check out the game, talking about how proud they were of all the work they put in, and it now features fully voice-acted cutscenes and a lot of additional upgrades. Unfortunately though, there was just nothing redeeming about this game. Terrible combat, bland graphics, horrible voice acting, and plenty of bugs. So like I said, without actively looking for something worse, Origin 13 is going to take the tier F title. But let's go ahead and move into some D tier items. Now I'm sure I'll get some pushback on my opinion here, but one of my least favorite headsets includes the Quest Pro. It's extremely overpriced, includes features like face and eye tracking that barely have any software support, the overall headset performance is poor, and barely a step up from the Quest 2 at nearly quadruple the price. And somehow the operating system manages to be more buggy than the Quest 2 itself, with a battery life that has been significantly reduced. Even at its new price tag of $1,000, it's really hard for me to recommend this headset. Now when it comes to D tier games, this was a harder decision to make. At D tier, the game should be objectively bad, rather than a title that just isn't your style. But I'm not in the market of playing bad games, so instead my D tier will be the blandest experience I've ever had, and for PC VR, that was Rift VR. This was an attempt at making Rock Band for VR, but unfortunately the ads were actually better than the game itself. It was mechanically poor, content was limited, and there was no real progression. After a few hours of playing, I felt cheated and just wanted my time back. Just like my experience with Transformers Beyond Reality on the PlayStation VR. It's an extremely bland, on-rails shooter with lots of robot stuff going on in the background. Arcade shooters did a better job at this back in the 90s. And as we make our way onto the Quest, 2 titles come to mind for the D tier. The first is VR Karts, which was a carryover from Gear VR, and while a Mario Kart-like experience sounds awesome in VR, in practice, this game fell really short. There were online connectivity issues, poor mechanics, no real sense of speed, and as many of the game's comments say, it was not worth $7. And the other poor quality title was Tarzan VR. This was a shallow experience that I actually enjoyed when I played on PC VR, but when it made its way onto Quest 2, it lost all of its charm and the graphics were comically downgraded. Well, let's make our way into the C tier, scoring points for being a relatively cheap hybrid VR headset featuring both standalone capabilities and full PC VR compatibility. The Pico Neo 3 was an okay headset. The main issues were the poor tracking and comfort, and unless you absolutely wanted a DisplayPort, the Quest 2 was just the better option. Now when it comes to PC VR games, Fallout 4 is an excellent example of a C-tier title. It was a buggy mess with pretty terrible controls. The non-VR roots show through, and the game basically requires mods to be serviceable. The main redeeming component of Fallout 4 was the fact that this is a full-length title, something we rarely see in VR. Now, some C-tier examples for the PSVR would include Batman VR and Wolfenstein Cyberpilot. Batman is actually a really cool experience, but it's over almost immediately, and Cyberpilot is 90 minutes of mediocrity. Now for the Quest, the easy choice is Grid Legends. Even the overly positive Quest review scores only have this at 3 stars. Not only is it one of the ugliest Quest 2 games, which that right there already says a lot, the title also forgot it's a VR game and excluded motion controls. Its only saving grace is the fact that this is actually a good racing game, but you are definitely playing the hands down worst version of it. But let's start to up the quality by moving into the B tier. The obvious headset choice is the Quest 2. It's a headset of compromises, but overall makes some excellent choices and delivers an all-around good experience. It was also VR's best bang for the buck when it launched at $300. Now, another good B-tier option could have been the Pico 4, but it's not currently available in the US, and it is trailing behind when it comes to standalone titles. Now, when I think about B-tier games, the first one that comes to mind is Fracked. Just like your over-the-top generic B-rated movies starring Vin Diesel, Fracked more than entertains and is definitely worth the price of admission, but ultimately it's a bit shallow. It scores the majority of its points just by being fun, but the B tier can be a bit tricky, as the difference between a B- and a B+ can be quite significant. While Fracked would come in as a low B, titles such as Farpoint, Demeo, and Into the Radius would all be high B titles bordering on the A tier. Now, a solid B-tier title for the Quest would be Iron Man VR. It's a lot of fun featuring great mechanics plus a cool storyline, but it does get a bit too repetitive as the combat starts to feel a bit grindy. But let's make our way into the A tier, where things start to get really good. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, you already know that I'm going to put the Valve Index in the A tier. Again, this is the score for when the headset released back in 2019, but 4 years later, this headset still remains my daily driver. It's the best all-around package when it comes to audio, microphone, comfort, controllers, and while the display is starting to age out, it's still a great balance between resolution and FOV. I still highly value the latency-less DisplayPort connection and the ease of use not having to deal with extra software or Wi-Fi streaming issues. Even with all of the updates VR hardware has received in the past few years, nothing has been a direct upgrade from the Index in every single category. You always end up sacrificing something like the field of view, audio quality, or just the ease of use. Even as impressive as the Big Screen Beyond and Pimax 12K look, I'm still not sure there'll be an upgrade in every single category. Now, lucky for us, VR has a bunch of A-tier games, and we'll start with the PlayStation VR this time. Horizon Call of the Mountain easily makes the list, featuring stunning graphics and plenty of truly intense gameplay moments. Now, I know people always mention Blood and Truth, but unfortunately I'm still yet to play that game, so I'll just take the community's word for it, but one of my personal favorites is Farpoint. It features excellent visuals, a gripping sci-fi storyline, and plenty of fast-paced combat. Moving on to PC, we have great titles like the Lone Echo series, Vertigo Remastered, and Boneworks. Lone Echo was all about beautiful graphics and highly immersive storytelling. Vertigo Remastered gave us an extremely high-quality Half-life shooter, and Boneworks showed us what makes VR so special. To date, it still has one of the best physics and combat systems in VR. Now, A-tier titles for the Quest are in shorter supply, but obviously Resident Evil 4 makes the list. This port of an absolutely fantastic classic title was done exceedingly well, and VR truly enhances the experience. This is one of the best single-player campaigns available in VR, and the other option for the Quest 2 is Bone Lab. What Boneworks did for PC VR, Bone Lab does for the Quest. Amazingly, they were able to bring a robust physics system onto a mobile platform while introducing a bunch of new features. But some people only want to play the best of the best, and that's where the S tier comes in. Unfortunately though, I don't believe there are any S tier headsets available right now. Until we get some Ready Player One or Black Mirror tech, every headset is coming with some sort of compromises. So for now, we'll continue to wait for the perfect piece of tech that will match the following games. For PlayStation VR, that's Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8, Gran Turismo 7, and Astro Bot Rescue Mission. Resident Evil 7 delivers an absolutely bone-chilling horror campaign, while Resident Evil 8 satisfies those looking for more combat. Gran Turismo is the ultimate VR driving experience, and Astro Bot is an unmatched platformer that knew how to truly showcase VR. Now, PC VR gave us both the best graphics and best single-player campaigns with Half-life Alyx, Vertigo 2, and Asgard's Wrath. No game matches the Half-life Alyx experience. Stunning visuals, an extreme level of immersion, great combat, plus an excellent level of variety throughout the campaign. While Vertigo 2 can't match Half-Life on the graphical front, it highly exceeds the title in its level of variety. There's tons of unique weapons, you have no idea what to expect from each level, and it's basically Half-Life meets Rick and Morty. And finally, Asgard's Wrath delivers an absolutely amazing 40+ hour RPG campaign. There's stunning visuals, fantastic combat, plus the developers knew how to use VR to deliver some highly immersive storytelling. And that right there, guys, is my F through S tier list. Now, obviously, there are plenty of other games we could have inserted, but I think these represent each tier the best. Now, I'm sure you'll disagree, as rating games is highly subjective, so go ahead and let me know your rankings down in the comments right now.
And that was today's video, brought to you by my dad, Mateo311. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here,
Consider subscribing.
consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
We'll see you guys on next time.
We'll see you guys on next time.